Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and we have this little weekly chat to kind of help us to continually focus on the now, realizing that now is the only time that is available to us. And then also looking at how everything that comes in life is really a lesson for us, for our improvement, for our learning, and to see those kinds of things. So today, our topic is ask, don't tell. And wanting to look at some of the things that I have, ask, don't tell. And so I have worked with the at-risk community for years. Not only did I work at a sanction center with federal prisoners that were coming out of prison for years, but reacclimating to live in society, but also people that had had their children taken away. I did parenting classes and so that they could get their children back, and had all kinds of things. And so beginning to, and thankfully for reality therapy and choice theory and the wonderful help from there, as well as help from a lot of other places also. But the relationship question, and we're always relating to people, or there's that possibility of what does it mean to relate? If we don't see some likelihood, we really won't relate. We'll just kind of put a standoff. So Dr. Glasser asked the relationship question, and that is what I am doing drawing us closer together, or is it pushing us further apart? And whenever we can become cognitive, well, can we become aware of that in all areas of our life? So what does it mean? Doing is what I am doing. Well, doing is total behavior. It is the way we act. It is the thoughts we think. It is the way we express things. It is whether we walk slow or fast. It is all of these things. It's the way we dress. It's our demeanor. It's our aura that we give off. All of that is those things that others see in us that either draws us to them or pushes us away. And so, which do we want to do as we go through life? Do we want to connect with others, or do we want to disconnect? And if we do want to disconnect, here's some really good ways to do it. Is to just demand, why don't you? I mean, we want them to just shape up. So why don't you? And we just lay out this perfect plan for life. Another thing we often say is, have you ever thought of? You know, I'm one up on you here. So, but maybe you, and what ideas or what messages does this send? Another one is, well, if I were you, I would. And that kind of, puts us up there as the person that knows the answers to all life situations. Well, the thing of it is that we don't. And so in working with others, I have 3 questions that I like to start off with to help them self-evaluate, because it is only as we can begin to look at ourselves, because we can tell ourselves, well, we can lie to ourselves real easily. So anyway, here's asking them, I'm curious. You're here in this class because of, the 12-step program, whatever step you're on, whether it's alcohol, drugs, gambling, or you're here to get your child back, or you're here because of crime, or whatever it is. I'm curious, whether I ask this individually or to a group. Did you not have anyone in your life to warn you that you're on a dead-end road, or to warn you, to give you a warning of the harm or the danger? And 99% gives an affirmative. Yeah, I had people to do that. And so then my next question is, once you were warned, did you immediately see the light and begin to change your ways? And again, it's about 99% that there's a little laugh there, or a little, sometimes it's an, oh, woe me, I did not listen. Because the thing of it is that we are individually architects of our own life. And other people telling us what to do, unless we are open to receive that information, we'll just close it down and will not listen. So then I asked, because quite frequently, I've had people that would tell me, you know, how that they are going to work with the at-risk youth, or they're going to do this or do that so that crime or drugs or whatever is just eliminated. And I applaud them for that. But then I asked them, what makes you think you're telling them will make a difference? And, but what will? So what I'm asking you now, what is the underlying message we give people when we just tell them what to do? Do we give them the message that you don't know what you're doing? You don't know what life is about. You just don't know. And again, going back up to Dr. Glasser's relationship question, does that endear them to you, that they want to know more? Or does that say, let me get out of here as quickly as I can? Let me pass this on off to something else. So here's just a few suggestions on asking rather than telling. One is to ask for permission to give suggestions and then respect their wishes. I had a boss one time. We were in a conference. It was all the staff, and we were together and we were discussing some things. And I made the comment to him. I said, "May I share with you what I'm seeing or what I'm thinking?" And he said, "No." And so I just instantly, did not pursue it. And we went ahead and talked, and the meeting was over with. And about 3 days later, my phone rang, and I picked it up, and this voice said, "Okay, what is it you see?" But anyway, we need to respect their wishes. If they don't want to hear us, even if we give it to them, they're still not going to hear us. Or have you ever agreed with anyone just to get them to shut up, but you didn't really agree with them? Because a person convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You're still going to believe what we believe. And what you've said really has not made a whole lot of difference. Now, there's occasion where a little drop of that can sink in, and it will begin to make a effect in the person's life. But that's something that we're not able to gauge unless they give us permission to actually speak into their life. And I suggest to you that, I like to ask the question of who has permission in your life to speak to you? Well, I personally want to just automatically grant others permission to speak to me because I choose to not be offended at what may be said or may not be, but to just give them permission to speak. Anyway, another suggestion is to not give an answer before a question is asked. And so in asking the questions, we need to look at and agree that there is a problem before we are willing to explain or give an answer to the problem. Or I was talking with my grandson the other day, and he brought up something that he did when he was much, much younger. And I made the comment to him. I said, "Yeah, but don't worry about that because that was before you had learned how to work things out to a spreadsheet." Which now he does. He's always taking out a spreadsheet and just going through all the. Anyway. But we must agree that there is some kind of a situation here. There's some kind of mud to walk through or to clean off. There's something to do. And unless we have somewhat of an agreement of this, even if it's just a casual nodding, that something's got to give. And then also, we must see that we are vulnerable before we are willing to set boundaries. And being vulnerable is a two-way street. It's not only the person that we are working with or wanting to, but it's also who we are and where we're coming from. And that we need to be aware of the fact that maybe that our vulnerability to try to set too many boundaries for them, or maybe to give too much information. And so it's be willing to see that we are vulnerable and that they are vulnerable. It's also realizing that when we conclude on our own, when we come to an agreement, when we come to an aha moment on our own, we're more open to insights, and our willingness to change or to see things differently becomes a little bit easier. We're not quite pushing against it so much. And then as we, the teacher, the instructor, the encourager, as we begin to give specific feedback, it will reinforce the behaviors we are teaching. As we begin to give them specific feedback or to ask specific questions, such as, well, how many hours do you watch TV? Well, what is it? Help them to come to their boundaries and definitions. And I find that most people are open to feedback if it's not forced on them, if we're not trying to cram anything, down their throats. And that anytime you find resistance in someone, whether that's family or clients or whomever, when you begin to find that resistance, change the subject and move on. Respect another person's dignity and where they're coming from. And then down here, asking pertinent questions to get the person thinking in a new vein. Our purpose in asking questions is not to grill so that the other person just has answers that they rattle off. Our purpose is to give them something to ask themselves. Our purpose is to give them something to consider so that they can come to a conclusion of a yes, no, maybe so, or suggestions. That we focus on self-evaluation versus feedback, to give them something to think about rather than asking for, for those answers or for what they're seeing, such as what you hope to accomplish through this particular action. What are you doing to help meet this goal? What will you do if things do not go as you assume they will? Helping them to really think about thoughts that maybe they never had thought about before. And what else can you do? That can be so-so. What can you do just to help them see what they can do, and what else can you do? And what resources do you need? It's helping the person that is kind of in a rut and does not know how to get out, to help them to realize the fact that there are resources, and through more information, you can learn and accomplish. And then also we want to help establish a benchmark of some kind. As you help establish a point of reference, then the person can gauge themselves. So that point of reference could be, again, like how many hours of TV do you watch? Or whenever you're late, how late are you? I worked with a client one time that I had to teach her to be late because she was so rigid. Sometimes we need to back off a little bit on any rigidness, and so that we can see who we are and who we really can be. The more thought-provoking the insight is, the better questions or comments can come. As in, do you think lightning would strike if you weren't on time? With the person that was so rigid about everything being just exact. So the more you can help them to establish a benchmark of some kind, the more thought-provoking the insight might be, the more effective the individual self-evaluation becomes. And especially in that one, she just began to laugh and she said, well, no, it probably wouldn't. Will the sun still come up tomorrow if you do not accomplish this today? And it is looking at leaving the final decision up to the individual, regardless of the consequences. Because, again, we are the architects of our life. And as we, the helper, in whatever position that's in, we, the helper, what is our motive in giving advice? We need to kind of look at us as well as look at them. And if they take your advice and the consequences are favorable, does that put a star in your crown? And do you take credit for it? Or can you rejoice with them and take the acknowledgement that they're the one that made the decision? That I may have given the information that, You are the one that bought the ticket and got on the bus. You are the one that chose to make that decision. And so as we can begin realizing that. And then also, if those people that you have taught or that you have helped or that you have given out to, if they ignore the principles and they continue on the downward spiral, have compassion for them, even if they continue to be in their misery. And if they continue, and then continue to be an encourager to them. Leaving that final decision up to them. I know I've had more than one client, and especially at the prison system, they would say, well, does that mean I don't have to come to these classes anymore? And I said, well, the thing of it is that everyone is under an authority. And it is your agreement to be here, to have early release and to go back out into society a little earlier, is that you are in agreement to the rules that are here, and the rules are you have to come to these classes. But, whether or not you engage in them is entirely up to you, or trusting that you will out of curiosity. And then also never give up, never give up, never give up. That maybe sometimes just speaking to someone in a hallway can kind of just a greeting, just a hello, just an acknowledgement that the person is there can work wonders. And then always, 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 my philosophy is carry the message, not the person. And I never shall forget that my disappointment that I had all of these 12-step and self-help things scheduled and advertising, and a few people came, 3 or 4 came, but it wasn't what I was wanting. And I was thinking, wow, I have a message the world needs to hear. And they just weren't coming to hear it. And all of a sudden, one day, I had this wonderful insight. And it was divine speaking to me. It was my higher self. But the thought that came was, no, Mona, you do not have a message the world needs to hear. You have a message that you need to share. And so that was just so enlightening. And it was so freeing. And so if it's 2 or 3, yeah, I have a message that it is important for me to share because it may help you. And in working with anyone, whether they are sent to me by the parole board, whether they are sent to me by whatever, is that I carry the message, not the person. And here are some of the messages. The message is you are self-determining. And you choose your behaviors, whether they are destructive, whether they are connecting, whether they are disconnecting. The message is you must do it yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. There are others that do want to help you. The message is I care, but I can't fix you. The message is I can give you some tools. I can give you some information, but I cannot use them for you. I worked with the volunteer fire department for years, and every year we would have a garage sale to raise funds. And in setting them out, we would have exercise equipment, and there would be things like ropes and, a few things like that. We put a sign up, they work if you do. And it's the same thing with us. Well, I can give you tools, I can give you information, but they only work if you take them and begin to employ them and see if they do work for you or not. And it's realizing that there are other perspectives, but you know what? I can't force them on you, and I'm not even going to try. So the message is there is help, but I'm not going to force it on you. And so some closing thoughts for our time today is that long run, what is the best way to help someone? Is it to tell them what to do? Or is it to ask them some questions, not to grill, but to help them self-evaluate as to what the answer or what the situation is? And is it something that will help them to lead to accountability and growth? And as you learn to ask those thought-provoking questions, will it lead the individual to self-evaluate and to be personally accountable? And as we, in continuing, as we can begin to see those things for ourselves, let that be encouragement for you. And then again, is it about helping the person come to terms with who he is and or with who he wants to be? Because there are some people that this one particular person that was real involved in pornography and was getting ready to be released, and talked to me one day, and he said, Miss Mona, I just got to be me. And I told him, I said, well, yeah, I agree. We do have to be who we are. But I suggest, and again, it's just a suggestion, that when you really know who you are and value the person of who you are, there are some of those things that may be degrading to you and degrading to others. You'll begin to see, hey, that's not who I want to be. So thank you for being here. I'd like to hear from you. Those of you that are live, we'll talk to one another, have chats here just a few minutes after I stop the recording. But if you're watching this at another time and have some questions or suggestions, I would love to hear from you. So thank you very much for being here, and many blessings and good mental health.